Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Hamdan lillah, Hamdan lillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wa la ilaha illallah, Wallahu akbar, Wallahu akbar.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Al-Hikmat TV. My name is Naima Khan Ghani and I'll be your host for today's segment of Who's Who in America and the Community. This program brings to you individuals who have dedicated and committed their lives to serving Allah. They come from the local, national and international levels of the community. We hope that their story will serve as an inspiration to you to get involved and motivate you so that you can make a difference in your community. Today my guest is Imaam Nasir Ahmad, who is from Masjid Al-Ansar, in Miami. Welcome to the program, Imaam Nasir.
Thank you. My honor and pleasure to be here.
It certainly is a pleasure to have you. I know you're very busy. Give us a little bit insight of your background, your professional background. So we'd like to get our viewers to know who you are as a real person.
Yes, I'd like to say to your viewers, Bismillah, with the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. Assalamu alaikum. I am an oral and maxillofacial surgeon. I trained in Nashville, Tennessee. I am the resident Imam of Masjid Al-Ansar. I came here in 1977, and in 1986 I went back to medical school, and I returned here about almost 9 years ago.
MashaAllah.
Yes.
Welcome back home.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. And my work involves the work in the masjid, naturally, a lot of dawah across the state, throughout the United States and various parts of the world. And in between that, I do my oral surgery. In Indiana, I see patients in Indiana, in Florida, and in Texas, Houston,
so you
Texas.
travel quite a lot,
yes.
Still you maintain your status as Imam of the Masjid.
Yes, they allow me to do it.
MashaAllah. So this comes to burning question. How are you able to juggle a full-time job both in society as the Imam and as well as your professional status?
It's because of the support that I have from good men and women. I have a resourceful team. It's a handful of men and women at Masjid Al-Ansar who handle the day-to-day affairs of the masjid and the school, the small school that we have. And it allows me the freedom to do the propagation or the dawah that I see needs to be done across the United States. I came, first of all, I was born and raised a Christian. And as I grew up as a child, I had many questions, great curiosity in terms of what I was taught with respect to God. And what troubled me and many African Americans is that we couldn't find our place in the traditional religion. We were small and all the images we had of God were Caucasians. Mm-hmm. So this was a problem deep in the subconscious mind. So in the early years, in the 50s and the 60s, there was the Nation of Islam, whose leader then was the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who's passed away. May God forgive him his sins and admit him to paradise. It was because of that man that I am a Muslim right now in the Sunnah of Muhammad. And many viewers, they're not aware of it, Mm-hmm. And he told us, and it's important for me to say this, that he was not teaching us religion, that he was teaching us self-respect and bringing us out of the fire, and that one would come after him that would teach us the religion. And it's important that I say
yes.
And so it was, and so it is.
Yes.
So we owe him a great debt of gratitude. And it's much like many Muslims, if they trace their ancestry all the way back, mm-hmm. they'll find that at one time they weren't Muslim. Maybe it was 1,400 years ago, and the message came to them. So you have to respect your foreparents who gave you the foundation of a home life and a cultural life upon which you had something to receive the pure tradition and pure Sunnah of Muhammad the Prophet. And it's important that I say that to your viewers. And the one who brought us into the Sunnah was the son of Elijah Muhammad, Imam Warathuddin Muhammad, who passed away about 3 years ago. And he is the one that brought us to the Quran and the Sunnah of Muhammad, of which we are practicing right now with no question, no deviation. We accept everything that's in the Quran and everything that's in the Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam without question.
And also has a lot of deep history in that and your reversion to Islam. So how long have you reverted to Islam?
Yes, it was in 1970, 71. I guess that's 41, 42 years ago. I hate to give the number, but my hair was all black at that time. Now I'm salt and pepper. So it's been about 70, 71. That's when we returned.
And you mentioned something earlier I thought was very intriguing. You said you have a good team of people working with you, and I think that is so important in our community, to be surrounded by people that you can trust, you know, people that you can rely on, that are dependable, because many times our leaders are flying solo, so to speak. You know, they don't have that support system, and that's very important, I think, in a community. So mashallah, you have that at Al-Ansar.
And that's because the individual can't come here without a community. The individual has a community of mother and father. That's the first community. And from that community, it extends out into the Masjid. And from that community, it extends out into the world.
Good.
Yes.
So no one person can really act alone.
No.
You know, a strong leader does have a strong support system.
That's exactly right.
Mashallah.
You know, everybody seeks to go to Dar Islam. You know, that most of the Muslim viewers, you know, in the Quran, it's called Dar Salam. And, you know, that's the letter D, Aleph, R. But, you know, you have D, U, R, and that means dur, dur. And dur, the same letters, it means to revolve and to rotate. That Allah will not allow any one person to live here on this earth forever. He rotates it. Otherwise, man would stay back where he was 14 or 3,000 years ago. So Dar es Salaam suggests that leadership will be rotated and that man's ideas in his mind should rotate, because the greatest transporters are ideas. We think the transportation is a car or the transportation is an airplane, but the greatest transportation is an idea. Ideas.
That's interesting, yes. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because you know, I think that seems to be a big problem, I should say, a challenge that we're facing in our community with some of our leaders today. You know, they seem to think that they can work independent of other communities, independent of other people, without taking everything surrounding them into consideration.
Yeah, you know, in our Quran, Allah says He made us into tribes and nations, not that we would despise one another, but that we would know one another. And the wisdom in the Quran is letting us know that Allah has put knowledge in various parts of the world. And in order for us to get the best of the knowledge, we have to respect all the various tribes and nations. Each one brings a segment of the knowledge. And then we are to sit at the table, and each person brings their concept of knowledge from that different region of the world, and the whole of humanity rises.
MashaAllah. So what motivated you to become an Imam?
Well,
that's a very strong position to hold.
Yeah.
I mean, you're accountable for a lot of
course.
things. It's more serious than being, you know, an MD.
That's exactly right. Imam, you spell it W-O-R-K. It means work.
24/7.
24/7.
Yes.
When I was born, my mother, she took me to my great-grandmother. And she told me, my great-grandmother said, I was arm baby. She said, that boy going to be a minister. You know. So I heard that all of my life. So I was fated. I couldn't get around it. I tried to do other things.
You were going to be a spiritual leader, one or the other.
I didn't want to be in the ministry. I wanted to play, sing, dance, be a musician, of which I'm still not. And what happened to me is that when we were in the Nation of Islam, we were taught the black man was God, you know, and that was to deal with the racism that we were raised under for 430 years. You know, we as African Americans were given the image of God as a Caucasian. You see, so the Nation of Islam was a psychology. It was reverse psychology. Since we were given the white man as God, the Nation of Islam gave us the black man as God, because we were bent all the way to one extreme. So the Nation of Islam
Went to
took
the
us to
other
the other
side.
extreme, and the Sunnah Muhammad stood us on the Sirat
Moderation.
al-Mustaqim.
That's right. MashaAllah.
Sirat al-Mustaqim. So we learned later on what helped us to come to this religion was that we learned that the Islamic religion was not based upon the identity of any nationality. It wasn't based upon any race, but it's based upon the common soul that we all are. And that is what reached most of us. About 2 million of us converted or returned to the religion of Al-Islam under Imam Muhammad. At one time, the largest conversion, as you would say, or return in the history of man outside of Muhammad the Prophet. Yes, but it was because of that language, and we learned that, man is born physiologically in the womb of his mother. But the mind of man is born in a language environment. The physical body, it needs the uterus. But the human mind needs language. And so that is what brought about our conversion. Again, as I was saying, ideas are the greatest transporter. So the Quranic language was that which was the vehicle that was used to bring us from a limited condition to another. Like, the child, when it's in the mother, it's in a limited environment.
That's right.
And it has to be brought from that limited environment to the bigger world of man. So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was used to bring humanity from small racial confines. Just like the body is confined in small restraints, the thinking of man was confined in small restraint. That this tribe is better than this tribe, and that is better than that tribe. So Muhammad, was like the midwife to deliver all of humanity from that small constraint into the universal concept of man. And that's what caused many of us to come to the Sunnah, that kind of language. Yeah, it was easy to drop the baby rattler. The baby like colors, little small children. Everything is colors with them. So it was easy for us to put down the white rattle and the black rattle and stand up with the universality.
And it just gravitated towards whichever one.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So, your job as an Imam, I'm sure, has been a very challenging one thus far. Since you reverted so many 41 years ago, can you compare Islam then, what it was, and Islam now, and the state that the Muslims are in?
Yes. 41 years ago, the Muslims in America were very low-keyed. They were not in prominence in the society. And the most prominent community at that time was the Nation of Islam, Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm. That was the most prominent vision that America had, and we used to be known as the black Muslims, quote unquote, unquote.
Right.
And now that we have seen the community life evolve across the United States now, we see many ethnicities are now on the scene in much of the media, that is cable and private media, and it shows the universality of the face of Islam now. Whereas 41 years ago, it was the black face predominantly that you saw of Islam. So we are very thankful for the many men and women, the various leaders, ISNA, ICNA, I mean, you name them, that are coming forward, care, and they're doing wonderful works, not just for the Muslim community, thank God. They're doing work for humanity at large.
That's important.
Yeah, as Allah told us with Muhammad, Alam nashrah laka sadra wa wada'na anka, and we have expanded your breasts, And the woman, she's usually pregnant, she usually has one child at a time, most women. But God has given her two to feed with. And that's a sign to us that God wants you to take care of your immediate concern, which would be your Muslim community, but also take care of the orphan.
But we're going to come back to, continuing to answer this question, because I'm sure you have a lot more to add.
Yes.
We need to take a short break.
Yes,
Please stay
thank you.
tuned. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Subhanallah.
Tune in to Who's Who in America and in your community, hosted by Sister Naima Khan Ghani, with extraordinary guests every Sunday night at 8:30 p.m. on www.alhikmatlive.com.
ولا إله إلا الله ولا إله إلا الله والله أكبر والله أكبر
Tune in for Friday Khutbah at 1:30 p.m., broadcasting live from Darul Uloom Institute, Pembroke Pines, Florida, on Al-Hikmat TV online.
Tuning to Young Muslim Talent in America, hosted by Salma Muhammad with talented kids from all over America, every Saturday night at 8:30 p.m. on www.alhikmatlive.com.
Thinking of doing Sadaqah Jariyah for your near and dear ones? We recommend you to sponsor the Origin of True Islam brochure, the Genealogy of Prophets, or the surahs and zikr to be recited daily as Sadaqah Jariyah for your parents who have passed away. Or you could sponsor one of the items for yourself, fi sabilillah. For more details, contact the Al-Hikmat office at 1-800-804-0267 or 954-986-0158 or email us at alhikmat@alhikmat.com.
Audience know that this is the focus they should be, gearing towards revival mode, waking up, getting out there, making a difference, and a plea to our community on behalf of you and myself. They need to get up, but they need to get involved.
Exactly. Your leaders are calling for support now.
Right. So we need them to make a difference, because even one individual can definitely make a difference.
That's
in this
right.
community.
That's right.
MashaAllah. It certainly has been a pleasure having you as my guest, Imam Nasir, and I sure hope that you will be able to join us again for another segment.
It's my honor, and may Allah bless you, and Eid Mubarak.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much. Join us again next week for another edition of Who's Who in America and the Community, where you meet ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
And we still were not seen in the eyes of many, not just Christians, but even many Muslims. Yes, it was very problematic for them. They couldn't believe that we could change so quickly, But the evolution for the human being is just like the child. When the child is first born, it wears shoes about this big. But eventually that child is going to wear shoes that are probably almost a foot long.
Like 10 and 11 size.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly what has happened to us, And, when the human being is born as an empty vessel. And you can put any life in that empty vessel. So naturally, when we first were introduced to what we were told was Islam, it was wrong and it was incorrect. The wrong knowledge had gone inside of that vessel. But with the coming of Imam Muhammad, he began to put the knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah in us.
He began to purify the contents of that vessel.
Correct. Yes. And he told us that the mother is the guardian of the sanctuary of life, which is true. And that's so close to what Muhammad the Prophet said, and paradise lies at the foot of the mother. So it is with that kind of language environment that guided us to evolve into the community that is now seen as universal. And I would like to say this to the Muslims that are viewing. It's much like a marriage. If a husband and a wife merely live together, it's not going to be successful. The husband and the wife have to live for each other, not live together. So the various Muslim communities, Allah has intended that we live for one another, not that we merely live with one another. So the Saudis, the Sudanese, the Malaysians, the Americans, the Trinidadians, you name them.
Yes, the West Indians.
We have to see that Allah intends for us to work together. You see, not merely for self, but to work together and to work, more importantly, for one another.
And that's what's happening now. It didn't happen 41 years ago.
That's correct.
So how do you think we were able to get to that point of embracing all these ethnic groups and look beyond just the culture and the color of your skin and the country that you're from? How were we able to get to that point of getting beyond that?
It's because of our great enlightened leaders. Many of them were imams. Others were sisters, just like yourself. I have heard many scholarly women over the 41 years give great insight, which means sometimes if a man tells you something, you won't accept it. But if a woman tells you something, you will be embarrassed to accept it because you thought you were smarter than she was. And we often forget. That's exactly right. And we forget that the first teacher was our mother. The first leader was our mother. Yes, the first leader was our mother. And this brings me to a point. They say, well, you know, I'm sharing with you Christians now. They say, why you put your women in the back? Isn't that disrespectful? And we have to remind them, no, when man begins his life, the woman is out front, the man is behind her as a small child. And she is the one that makes she brings him up equal to her, and she pushes him out front. And most people say, well, that's still chauvinistic. So no, it's not chauvinistic. The most valuable is protected.
Is a quality of a good leader.
Yes.
And she is a good leader.
When you have war, the president is never in the front line. He's behind because he's what? The most valuable. Right. So Al-Islam says the most valuable you place behind. The man's role is in front, that he is the protector and maintainer of the woman. And he is never to forget that role. That's why symbolically he's put up front. But we know the first teacher is the woman.
Right, and the first person to accept Islam was a
woman.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the first martyr was a woman. Yes, thank you.
And we can go on and on, and that's a whole other program we're going to have, inshallah.
Yeah, you know, in Islam, she's called many names, but one name is Untha. And that means, it means female, but it means female is not one word, it's two words, F-E, and then male. That I'm a male, and she's a male, but she's a male with a special property. Fi in Arabic means in, and she carries the divine life for the will of Allah expressed for the next generation inside. That which I don't have.
That is interesting. I like how you take these words, you give a lesson out of every word that you're talking about, and you relate it to Islam. MashaAllah, that's a good quality.
Well, that's from Muhammad the Prophet,
MashaAllah.
And Imam W.D. Muhammad, he shared those concepts with us. So I'm just sharing it with you.
Oh, that's good. I know, I'm glad that you're doing that, so viewers can, not just take things for granted. The simple word female, like you just outlined to us. Not take these things for granted, but learn from them instead.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I know Masjid Al-Ansar has been around for a long time. Correct me if I'm wrong. It's been the first masjid to be established here in South Florida or the entire state of Florida?
The entire state of Florida, yes ma'am.
Now, what are some of the activities that you all were involved in the past?
The main activity naturally was Jummah, Talant, and our little small school. But we've been involved in prison services now for almost 50 years. Community outreach, feeding the poor. We've been doing that for about 45 years.
And these programs are still continuing?
Yeah. They're not as strong as they were, but we're going to reinstitute them. We just have to give our community a chance to readjust to the economic downturn. A lot of our membership are really suffering now. So we have to take a little pressure off of our members so that they can adjust themselves and then get back to the work of the community life that we have had in the past, which is really the work of Muhammad the Prophet.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, Masjid Al-Ansar, since it was the first masjid to be established in the state of Florida, all the other ethnic groups, they sort of gravitated towards Al-Ansar. So you had quite of, multicultural ethnicity established and represented there.
Yes.
Is it the same now?
Yes. If you come to Jummah now, you will hardly see the African Americans. We're being outnumbered. When we started, I'm a grandparent now, and most of the ones in my generation, a little older, some of them have passed away, and they were my strongest supporters from the non-American population of Muslims. I have never experienced problems with the Muslims from the different parts of the world. Of 41 years, I never experienced anything except support.
So you have a kaleidoscope of Muslims.
Yes, and I'm jealous because...
So beyond the myth, people need to go beyond that. It's a myth that it's just African American Muslims.
If they come to the masjid, they would be shocked. They would think they're in Saudi Arabia or Sudan or Pakistan. Yeah.
That must be, a phenomenal sight to see all these people coming under at least one roof and working together.
Yes, and it's the prediction of Muhammad the Prophet. He said this would happen. Yes, he did, and we are living proof of it.
Now, what's some of the other vision that you have for the community? I wouldn't say not limited to Masjid Al-Ansar, but for the community at large, and especially focus on our youth. How do you plan to get them, if you haven't done so already, involved in the community? Because we know we need to invest in our youths now. They are the future, and we need to sort of, especially the way things are, invest in them, because they're going to lead us, inshallah, in the years to come.
Yeah, absolutely. The simplest answer that I can say to our viewers is we have to establish the ummah, or I would say the community. We have to have neighborhoods now where we're working hard to live next door to each other.
Do you think that's, and sorry to cut you off, but do you think that has been more difficult since the 9/11 incident? Trying to bring the neighbors and the community working together, is it more challenging now?
I would say at the outset, yes. But as we interact with the non-Muslims, they are so appreciative to hear the insights of the religion. To the resistance is almost nil. You can hardly find it. I remember at 9/11, when it happened, I was invited to certain places to speak. This was in Dallas, Texas. And I went to this particular place, predominantly Caucasians. As I walked in there, women were crying, because they had recently heard about the tragedy.
Right.
And they were full of tears, eyes were red. These are women. Now, you could imagine what the men were feeling like. So as we had an opportunity to talk with them, we shared with them the fact that we had a musalla in the Twin Towers. And in the musalla were Muslims. And Muslims were killed. And the eyes dried up. And they were in shock and awe that Muslims were victims of 9/11 as well as that. And that did so much to alleviate that tension, And it's efforts like that that seem to quell any apprehensions that people seem to have. It's just communication. Muhammad the Prophet, he said the ink of the scholar weighs more than the blood of the martyr. And I have to tell Muslims this too, And the martyr who died in the time of Muhammad the Prophet, or Christ Jesus, whoever, some of your listeners are Christians and Jews too.
Yes.
If you go to the Holy Land, you will not be able to find their blood. But the ink of the scholar that wrote the Torah, or that wrote the Injil, or that wrote the Quran, that ink is still here. We can find that ink, but we can't find the blood. So Muhammad the Prophet was telling us, if we would educate our people and educate the world, you're going to find war decreasing more and more and more. The ink of the scholar is more powerful than the sword of the warrior. Yes. So this is what I'm finding. I'm sharing how I see the hadiths and how I translate them and put it into my daily practice with the society at large, of Muslims and non-Muslims. Yes. Because we're victims too.
Of course. And people think that we're just the cause of the problem. We're not.
Yeah, we're big victims.
The solution.
Yeah.
Working with everyone else to find a common solution.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, and to get our viewers to understand that the earth is the womb of all life. And all life has to have equal access to the benefits of the earth. And that the earth doesn't want humanity's potential entombed. It doesn't want it entombed. And as long as we see ourselves in nationalistic terms, as tribal terms, as racial terms, this is the division that is hurting us. Whether we're Muslims or non-Muslims, this is what is hurting us. We have to see that the external is not the real person. The real person is what's on the inside. I mentioned this before. My heart, as black as I am, is in the same place the white man's heart is.
It doesn't matter what's on the outside.
Right.
Or the color
And my
of
lungs are in the
That's
same
right.
place. So the most valuable is what's on the inside and not what's on the outside. And this is the struggle to get humanity to see that our oneness is internal. Our oneness is not external. The external that we're looking at only tells us where we came from. That's all. So this tells you I came from Africa. It doesn't tell you my essence. It only tells you where I'm from.
not the inside of
And
who
you know what?
really are.
Yeah. When I had, I'm a surgeon. So some patients, they're dying, right? They call for, where's the doctor? And they don't say, where's the Muslim? They don't say, where's the Christian?
It doesn't matter. Just help me,
They say,
save me.
where's the
That's right.
doctor? So they're looking for the inside that's going to save their life. They don't say, oh, give me that black skin. That black skin will do the surgery.
Oh, I don't want this Muslim doctor. It doesn't matter, right?
It's humorous.
Yeah.
I don't mean to insult your viewers, you know.
Oh, not
but,
at all.
that's the reality, you know.
So how you mentioned earlier about reviving some of the activities that you were so heavily involved in the past. What are your plans to do this? Because I know that must be difficult, or I should say challenging now in the community, especially with the economy, you know, and the way things are. How do you plan to revive some of these things that were so vibrant in the past?
Yes. We just remind our people that, listen, we are told, فَإِنَّ مَعَ الْعُسْرِ يُسْرًا. Certainly with the difficulty comes the ease. And what Muslims have to do is read the Quran and translate the Quran in terms of what's happening in our lifetime. Allah says, and He will visit you with adversity and hardship. He says this in the Quran. And He says why He does it. So that you will come back to your conscience. When the child is doing something wrong, the parent spanks the child physically to try to get the child to realize that it has done something wrong. So God is bigger than that. He's bigger than that. So He, instead of we being spanked on a hand, He spanks us with our economies. He spanks us with our tragedies, with our earthquakes, to awaken our conscience that we are hurting whole sums of communities with a particular policy. Right. Yes. So it's the purpose of this is to awaken the conscience of the masses that you have gone away from what is the best for all of humanity. Yeah, so I translate the Quran into what's happening in the world, and it seems to answer the question so well.
So it's like a revival time now. That's the mode, revival mode for what's, you know, what's currently
come back to your best of urges.
Yeah, sort of motivate them and inspire them no matter what the calamity they face.
Right.
And as you just quoted from the Quran, with hardship cometh ease.
Yeah, after difficulty, it's going to come to ease.
Good.
Yes,
now, as we come down to the end of our program, what is the vision you have for the community at large, not only Masjid Al-Ansar? What's your vision? Yes, the vision, as I said a little earlier, is we need community life. We need a neighborhood. We're going to have to live next door to each other. We're going to have shopping centers. We're going to have banking. We're going to have manufacturing. This is the vision. This is where we must go. We're fated to go there. We're going to go there willingly or unwillingly. And this is what is happening. God is breaking up the economy so that the individual will come into his own nature, his productive nature that God has given him. And you're talking about Muslims and non-Muslims living together in the same community. Exactly. Not in isolation. Oh, yeah. We're not, listen, the Lone Ranger, his days are over. That was a program I had a little child. Oh, yeah, I remember that program. Yes. So he lost Tonto and the silver horse and everything. It's gone. It's unity now. It's a new era. Yeah, that's right. It's community. So as we you know, the program is coming to an end and we're just about a time. What parting words would you have for our audience? Yes. This is the month of Ramadan, and it comes every year like your birthday. And you know, the birthday of the human being, when Allah, God created the human being is brought in this world, He's brought in innocence and purity. So Ramadan coming every year, like this, like my hand, it starts here, goes around and stuff. The human being every year, he is to return to that original purity that God gave him. That's the purpose of Ramadan. The human being is born in the womb of his mother. In the 9th month, he's born, but during that whole period, it's darkness. And in Ramadan, we don't eat in the daytime. We eat when? In darkness, which is a sign that God had made us perfect in the bodies of our mother. Now He wants us to make our own selves in our minds. So Ramadan is a pattern, you know, after nature. So this is a supreme opportunity for Muslims to recreate themselves mentally in the light of the Quran. Yeah. The baby looks like his mother or father. And the human adult should look like the Quran or Sunnah. Interesting, and I'm glad you mentioned that because we're just about out of time now. So last words, it's revival mode that we're in right now. So I'm sure you'd like to let our audience know that this is the focus they should be, gearing towards. Revival mode waking up, getting out there, making a difference, and a plea to our community on behalf of you and myself. They need to get up, but they need to get involved.
Exactly. Your leaders are calling for support now.
Right. So we need them to make a difference, because even one individual can definitely make a difference.
That's
in this
right.
community.
That's right.
MashaAllah. It certainly has been a pleasure having you as my guest, Imam Nasir, and I sure hope that you will be able to join us again for another segment.
It's my honor, and may Allah bless you, and Eid Mubarak.
MashaAllah. Thank you so much. Join us again next week for another edition of Who's Who in America and the Community, where you meet ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Subhanallah, Subhanallah, Hamdan lillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Wallahu akbar. Subhanallah, Hamdan lillah, wa la ilaha illallah, Wallahu akbar.